As mentioned in the previous article, the U.S. Air Force believed that there would no longer be any hostile capabilities to break through the U.S. air supremacy in the world. Therefore, the F-35 weakened its performance based on the F-22 and unified not only all U.S. military services but also the entire U.S. military at a lower price. NATO. The F-35 under this totalitarian and unified planned economic system has brought disastrous consequences to the entire United States and NATO. It wiped out all other capabilities developed by the United States and other NATO countries that can compete with China's new Air Force. This article will further discuss that the U.S. Navy believes that with only the existing 11 aircraft carrier battle groups, it no longer needs more sea control, and only needs to develop land attack capabilities based on stealth technology. The DDG-1000 Zumwalt stealth-guided missile destroyer and the LCS littoral combat ship developed under the guidance of this kind of naval strategic thinking of seeking defeat alone ended in disastrous failure. The reason why the United States seeks to reduce the price of military products and continues to fail in electromagnetic ejection technology is that the hollowing out of the industry is too serious, and any product developed and produced by itself will be difficult to mature and stabilize due to high prices and no mature product support. Coupled with the kidnapping of various interest groups, it is impossible to concentrate resources in the direction that is really needed. This makes it impossible for the United States to effectively respond to the challenge of China's military power even though it is well aware of it. However, the United States has an extremely powerful ability to strategically deceive, or more directly say strategic deception, so as to over-magnify the actual level of the United States in terms of military and technology. 6. How did the U.S. Navy order the wrong technology tree in an all-round way? 1. Carriers and their problems. When we talk about aircraft carriers, our minds are full of the American-style aircraft carrier style, 100,000 tons of displacement, nearly 100 fighters, catapult takeoff, and arresting cable landing. The difference is only conventional or nuclear power, electromagnetic ejection, or steam ejection, more subdivided. There are catapult/arresting cable CTOL, ski jump short takeoff/arresting cable landing STOL, ski jump takeoff/vertical landing S/VTOL. The latest Ford class uses the Advanced Aircraft Recovery System AARS, Advanced Aircraft Recovery System. Its arresting device still uses arresting cables, but the energy absorbed by the aircraft is changed from the traditional hydraulic energy absorbing system to a new electric recovery method. This American-style aircraft carrier can be called a heavy aircraft carrier. China's aircraft carrier Dream is also modeled on the American aircraft carrier. The current 3 aircraft carriers Liaoning, Shandong, and Fujian are all heavy aircraft carriers or quasi-heavy aircraft carriers. However, with the development of military technology, will the future really be dominated by American-style aircraft carriers? Compared with the unified planned economic strategy of the U.S. Air Force using F-35 to dominate the world, the Navy cannot be so simple and rude. First of all, it is impossible for the most advanced heavy-duty aircraft carrier in the United States to be sold to other NATO countries. It turns out that in addition to the United States, among the NATO countries, Britain, France, Italy, and Spain have the ability to develop and produce their own aircraft carriers. The United Kingdom has 2 Queen Elizabeth-class aircraft carriers in service. The first ship, HMS Queen Elizabeth, was officially commissioned on December 7, 2017, and the other HMS Prince of Wales was commissioned on December 10, 2019. This level of medium-sized aircraft carrier can carry a maximum of 36 to 40 F-35B vertical takeoff and landing fighters and 4 MASC early warning helicopters. Or in the amphibious assault mode, all helicopters are loaded on the ship, and a mixed formation can be selected, 18 A-101 helicopters, 6 CH-47 transport helicopters, 6 A-64 armed helicopters, and 4 UAVs for ocean surveillance. Aircraft or Watcher unmanned reconnaissance aircraft, or 25 CH-47 Chinook transport helicopters, and if necessary, American B-22 Osprey tiltwing aircraft can also take off and land. In addition, it can also take into account the short takeoff vertical landing, stop low, fighter F-35C. Queen Elizabeth's twin-ship island and ski jump deck. A French nuclear-powered aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, commissioned on May 18, 2001. The standard displacement is 35,000 tons. Italy has 2 light aircraft carriers developed and produced by itself, the Garibaldi, but their standard displacement is only 10,100 tons. Can this thing be considered an aircraft carrier? The other is the light aircraft carrier USS Cavour, with a standard displacement of 22,000 tons. The Garibaldi can be configured with a maximum of 16 Sea Falcon short-field vertical takeoff and landing fighters, or 18 Italian-developed Augusta helicopters, or American SH-3 Sea King helicopters. It can also take off fixed-wing aircraft with a short ski jump. 4 was originally planned to carry 22 F-35Bs. A Spanish Juan Carlos I strategic force projection ship. It entered service in December 2011, with a standard displacement of 27,000 tons. In addition, Brazil's Sao Paulo aircraft carrier, Thailand's Royal Princess aircraft carrier, and India's Vikramaditya aircraft carrier were all purchased from other countries. India also has a Vikrant aircraft carrier developed and produced by itself, which will enter service on September 2, 2022, with a standard displacement of 37,500 tons. Russia's ill-fated Admiral Kuznetsov aircraft carrier is currently under maintenance and is expected to return to active duty in the spring of 2024. It belongs to the original code-named 1143 aircraft carrier program with the Varyag aircraft carrier based on the Chinese aircraft carrier Liaoning. The aircraft carrier Kuznetsov is the first of this type, and the Varyag is the second. Therefore, in NATO countries, apart from the Charles de Gaulle of France, other aircraft carriers are closer to the Tarawa class, Wasp class, and American class of the United States, the Type 075 of China, and the Izumo class, Asumai class, and Haiga class of Japan. South Korea's Dokdo class and other amphibious assault ships, or helicopter carriers, are closer. America class amphibious assault ship. China's first Type 075 amphibious assault ship Hainan ship, string number 31. Named after the name of the province, it shows that it is treated at the same level as the aircraft carrier. On April 23, 2021, it entered service in the South China Sea Fleet at the same time as the Type 055 Dalian ship, string number 105, and the number 18 strategic nuclear submarine, string number 421, in Sanya. In addition, the Guangxi ship and the Anhui ship are both Type 075 amphibious assault ships. If we classify amphibious assault ships into the concept of light aircraft carriers, let's first take a look at the construction time and cost of various types of aircraft carriers in the United States and China. Such a comparison will reveal that there is a fourfold difference in cost between the latest heavy-duty aircraft carrier and a light aircraft carrier in the United States, and a twofold gap in the time from construction to service. There is a tenfold cost gap between the two in China, and a twofold gap in time. The latest Ford-class electromagnetic ejection nuclear-powered aircraft carrier in the United States has more than doubled the cost of the previous generation Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. The prices of many U.S. aircraft carriers mentioned above are just estimates, especially those that are not yet in service and are under construction. The price at the beginning of construction will generally exceed the budget by more than 30% when it is finally in service. This is just a comparison of the cost of the aircraft carrier. If the maintenance cost of the entire aircraft carrier battle group is included, the price must be multiplied by at least 20 or more. Even the United States with deep pockets cannot bear such costs. Although the aircraft carrier produced in China has the same performance and lower cost. However, the Fujian uses the same level of electromagnetic ejection as the American Ford, but with conventional power, the price has already reached half of that of the Ford. If nuclear power is adopted in the future, the price will obviously increase significantly, so that it will not be much worse than the Ford class. This can be a bit of a headache. This can't help but question a question: is the heavy aircraft carrier really the direction of development? This problem did not seem to be a problem in the past, but it is a huge problem today. Not only because of dramatic changes in technological conditions, but also because of the fundamental difference between China's long-term international strategy and that of the United States. Before World War II, giant gunships were the core of sea dominance, so the core strength of the Navy was heavy cruisers. The number of guns on the largest cruisers can run into the hundreds. What is an aircraft carrier? To put it bluntly, it is an airport on the sea. Because it was proved by actual combat in World War II that air supremacy is the foundation of sea supremacy, because no matter how far the artillery range on a warship is, it is impossible to have the simplest carrier-based aircraft with a farther combat radius. No matter how large the caliber of a naval gun is, its shells cannot be larger than the bombs that a carrier-based aircraft can carry. For example, the Japanese battleship Yamato, which was extremely large in World War II, had a warhead weight of 1.46 tons for its 460 mm caliber main gun, which is basically the limit of the warhead weight of the naval gun. The largest Iowa-class battleship in the United States, the Mk8 shell of its 406 mm main gun weighs 1.225 tons. However, large aerial bombs in World War II generally reached more than 2 tons. The jump bombs specially made by the Royal Air Force for bombing the Ruhr Reservoir each weighed 5.4 tons and were carried by Lancaster bombers. In addition, aerial bombs such as the 5.44-ton Goblet and the 10-ton Grand Slam have been used. British Goblet aerial bomb. Although the above aerial bombs may not all be used on aircraft carriers, the weight of aerial bombs that can be used by fighter planes on aircraft carriers is generally much heavier than naval guns. Therefore, in World War II, the aircraft carrier officially became the core force of sea control, replacing the era of giant cannon ships. All other ocean-going naval equipment is gradually built around aircraft carriers. The guided missile destroyer is called the guard with the knife of the aircraft carrier, and the submarine is called the underwater guard of the aircraft carrier. What should the frigate guard? The main thing is to escort the aircraft carrier. However, technological progress in several aspects has gradually changed the prerequisites for the aircraft carrier to have the core position of sea dominance. First of all, the cost of the aircraft carrier itself is getting more and more expensive, and even the United States has begun to be unable to bear such a high cost. The Navy is known as the 100 Years Navy, gold-swallowing behemoth. Sea power is of course very important, but if its price is so high that it bankrupts the economy of the country with sea power, it will go to the opposite side of things. The second is the emergence of ballistic missile anti-aircraft carrier weapons with a range that can cover any ocean on the Earth, and this is the military revolution that China took the lead in promoting. The aerospace fighter that can cover the entire Earth and achieve a global one-hour strike has also been pregnant in October and will soon give birth. As a result, the command of the sea will gradually no longer be based on the command of the air, but may be based on the command of the sky. The platforms and bases of space control are no longer aircraft carrier platforms, but land bases, guided missile destroyers or heavy long-range strategic bombers. No matter how fast an airplane flies, it will never be faster than a hypersonic ballistic missile. No matter how far the combat radius is, it is far less than ballistic missiles. The price of a DF-17 with a range of more than 2,000 kilometers is generally believed to be only 10 to 20 million yuan, while the price of the Eagle Strike 21 is 10 million US dollars. The French Rafale fighter is considered to be the carrier-based aircraft with the longest combat radius at present, which is only 1,500 kilometers. The combat radius of the United States main carrier-based aircraft is only more than 800 kilometers. The reason why Eagle Strike 21 is designed to have a range of 1,000 to 1,500 kilometers is to just exceed the combat radius of all existing aircraft carrier-based aircraft. The price of Dongfeng 17 is 1/3,500 to 7,000 of the latest Ford-class aircraft carrier in the United States, and the price of Eagle Strike 21 is 1/700 of that. The United States itself once hyped the aircraft carrier coffin at sea theory in history, which successfully fooled the Soviet Union. The reason why this deceit is successful is that its argument itself is indeed the truth. The reason why it became a fool is that the problem is only the prerequisite for those truths, which could not be realized technically in the Soviet Union at that time. If A, then affirm B, this is the truth. If you say this truth to people who cannot achieve A, it is fooling. Truth and deception itself are the same, the question only depends on whether you can realize the precondition of truth. It is very regrettable that the prerequisite for this truth has been realized by China today. Although at present only China can turn all aircraft carriers in the world into sea coffins, but since China can achieve it, what reason is there to say that other countries will never be able to achieve it? An aircraft carrier is a 100-year project, and it may be ready to be used for 50 years after it is built. Some people always want to prove that sinking a modern aircraft carrier is so difficult that it is almost impossible, and they use the experiments done by the United States as a case to prove it. As early as 2005, it took the United States 25 days of continuous bombing to sink an 80,000-ton Kitty Hawk-class aircraft carrier. But it must be understood that whether tanks or warships are destroyed in real wars, most of them are not because of the explosive power of the attack ammunition itself, but because of the detonation. It was mainly destroyed by the ammunition it carried. The amount of ammunition carried by a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier is at the level of 3,000 tons. It may withstand the attack of a hypersonic anti-ship missile with a 1-ton warhead without sinking, but the 1,000 tons it carries in its own cabin, assuming I have already used half of it, to the impact of the explosion of 3,000 tons of ammunition, can it bear it? No way. This is a small nuclear bomb exploded from the inside, and no aircraft carrier can withstand it. In theory, just one grenade can sink any current and future heavy aircraft carrier in the world, as long as the place where it explodes is an ammunition depot. The reason why it takes so much effort to develop such an advanced anti-aircraft carrier weapon is that it is not so convenient to send a grenade to the ammunition depot of the enemy aircraft carrier to detonate, and then leave smoothly. Because of this, the charge of naval guns used to attack warships is often very small. For example, although the Type 91 armor-piercing projectile used by Yamato's 460mm main gun to attack ships weighs 1.46 tons, its charge is only 33.85 kilograms. This is the idea of using a 1.46-ton big iron lump to smash a hole in the enemy warship, and then send a small explosive package to its ammunition depot to detonate. Anti-ship missiles are far faster than naval guns and aerial bombs because of their terminal speed, and their armor-piercing capabilities are far stronger than them. For example, the final speed of the Eagle Strike 18 can reach Mach 3, while the Eagle Strike 21 can reach Mach 10. Therefore, its warhead can be much larger than naval guns and aerial bombs. Eagle Strike 18 can reach 140 to 160 kilograms, there is also a saying of 200 to 250 kilograms, and Eagle Strike 21 can even reach 800 to 1000 kilograms. The equivalent of each kilogram of China CL-20 explosive is about 3, that is to say, the charge of the Eagle 21 warhead is equivalent to 2.5 to 3 tons of TNT equivalent. Just one hit is pretty much guaranteed to detonate any ship's ammunition depot. 5 to 3 tons of TNT equivalent. Just one hit is pretty much guaranteed to detonate any ship's ammunition depot. 5 to 3 tons of TNT equivalent. Just one hit is pretty much guaranteed to detonate any ship's ammunition depot. The 46-ton big iron lump smashed a hole in the enemy warship, and then sent a small explosive package to its ammunition depot to detonate. Anti-ship missiles are far faster than naval guns and aerial bombs because of their terminal speed, and their armor-piercing capabilities are far stronger than them. For example, the final speed of the Eagle Strike 18 can reach Mach 3, while the Eagle Strike 21 can reach Mach 10. Therefore, its warhead can be much larger than naval guns and aerial bombs. Eagle Strike 18 can reach 140 to 160 kilograms, there is also a saying of 200 to 250 kilograms, and Eagle Strike 21 can even reach 800 to 1000 kilograms. The equivalent of each kilogram of China CL-20 explosive is about 3, that is to say, the charge of the Eagle 21 warhead is equivalent to 2.5 to 3 tons of TNT equivalent. Just one hit is pretty much guaranteed to detonate any ship's ammunition depot. The 46-ton big iron lump smashed a hole in the enemy warship, and then sent a small explosive package to its ammunition depot to detonate. Anti-ship missiles are far faster than naval guns and aerial bombs because of their terminal speed, and their armor-piercing capabilities are far stronger than them. For example, the final speed of the Eagle Strike 18 can reach Mach 3, while the Eagle Strike 21 can reach Mach 10. Therefore, its warhead can be much larger than naval guns and aerial bombs. Eagle Strike 18 can reach 140 to 160 kilograms, there is also a saying of 200 to 250 kilograms, and Eagle Strike 21 can even reach 800 to 1000 kilograms. The equivalent of each kilogram of China CL-20 explosive is about 3, that is to say, the charge of the Eagle 21 warhead is equivalent to 2.5 to 3 tons of TNT equivalent. Just one hit is pretty much guaranteed to detonate any ship's ammunition depot. Since World War II, especially in the last decade or so, aircraft technology has undergone tremendous changes. Vertical takeoff and landing aircraft no longer need the extremely complicated takeoff and landing technology on the aircraft carrier. In addition to traditional helicopters, the technology of fixed-wing vertical takeoff and landing fighters is becoming more and more mature and popular, although they may be affected in other technical indicators because of this. All kinds of drones have also appeared one after another. Because UAVs can be made much smaller in size than manned machines, complex takeoff and landing techniques are no longer required. Therefore, even if there is still a need for an aircraft carrier, it is likely that there is no need for a heavy-duty aircraft carrier with the concept of the past. Concepts such as amphibious assault ships are actually light aircraft carriers. I personally think they represent the direction of future development, the cost is an order of magnitude lower and the production cycle is shortened by more than half. It is easier to match in scale with the small tasks that are carried out on a daily basis. In large-scale wars, it can be assembled through numbers and is not weaker than the strength of heavy aircraft carriers. If the 076 uses electromagnetic ejection, it can also take off and land large early warning aircraft and tankers. Then it only has the difference in the number of single carrier-based aircraft from the heavy-duty aircraft carrier, and basically no longer has any functional difference. The number of carrier-based aircraft can be arbitrarily compensated by the number of light aircraft carrier platforms. When a light aircraft carrier is sunk in a war, it suffers far less equipment and personnel losses than a heavy aircraft carrier, and it is easier to recover. In the history of the development of the world's navies, many warships equipped with the concept of extreme heavy duty, once sunk in a war, the entire country will face the consequences of losing its command of the sea and even subjugating the country. Too heavy, light, or super jumbo. The Chinese 076 amphibious assault ship on foreign media uses electromagnetic ejection. China's first drone carrier concept ship Zhu Haiyun delivered on January 12, 2023. It is rumored on the internet that Saudi Arabia wants to buy a 15,000-ton unmanned aircraft carrier from China, with a length of 200 meters, a width of 38.8 meters, and a runway of 25 meters. Bosch A-1 UAV aircraft carrier to be launched in 2022. From the aforementioned analysis, it can be seen that light aircraft carriers and unmanned aircraft carriers will play an increasingly important role in controlling the sea in the future. We do not want to completely negate heavy aircraft carriers, but we need to make more comparisons from the perspective of today's and future technological development. In addition, the reason why the United States maintains the configuration of more than 10 aircraft carriers for a long time is to maintain the image of world hegemony. This has kept the U.S. annual military expenditure at an extremely high ratio of 3%-5% of GDP for a long time. This is the price of maintaining an image of hegemony. China has less than 1.5%, and most countries do not exceed 2%. For the United States, the cost of maintaining this image may be compensated through dollar hegemony. If China maintains such an image in the future, it will inevitably face the problem of long-term excessive military spending. How can it be compensated for? China does not want to seek hegemony, nor does it want to take the old path of exploiting the world through currency hegemony like the United States. Therefore, we must find a path of military development that is far more cost-effective than that of the United States. China will inevitably assume the responsibility of maintaining international order in the future. We should not just be proud of being able to quickly and smoothly evacuate overseas Chinese when troubles occur in other parts of the world, but we can suppress most troubles from the very beginning. This requires China to have the ability to have a global military presence. The United States obtained the convenience of stationing troops around the world through the special historical opportunity of the leaders of the Allied countries in World War II. It is difficult for China to have the opportunity to take this path, and the cost of such stationing troops is also extremely high. Therefore, obtaining the ability to have a global military presence through super-large floating islands is one of the most cost-effective feasible solutions. Imaginary drawing of floating island aircraft carrier. For example, the United States has a military base on Diego Garcia Island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, which gives it the ability to control the entire Indian Ocean. Just imagine, if China parks a giant floating island on the left and right sides of the north of Diego Garcia Island, the U.S. military base will be locked up by us. Similarly, with a number of giant floating islands distributed in the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean and other oceans, China also has the convenience of quickly reaching military forces around the world. The cost of these giant floating islands is much lower than that of aircraft carriers, and they do not require maintenance. It doesn't matter what the underwater barnacles and shells look like. Such a giant floating island has poor maneuverability, but since it is distributed all over the world, why do you want it to maneuver? It is equivalent to China having a permanent base in this place on the ocean. It can be used for civilian use, ocean development, scientific investigation, maritime emergency rescue base, ocean relay station, ocean vacation tourism, to make money in peacetime, and can be used for military use in wartime. It could of course be attacked, but who would have the guts? For the world boss, nuclear bombs, aircraft carriers, giant floating islands, the main purpose of these things is to scare people and maintain the image of the boss. Since it is just to maintain the image and scare people, why not achieve the goal with the lowest cost and price? If you really want to hit people, it is enough to use aerospace fighters, light aircraft carriers, drone carriers, guided missile destroyers, ballistic missiles, ultra-long-range rocket launchers, and stealth bombers. 3. Missile destroyer, sea or land. To innovate is to face the risk of failure. However, the 2 warship projects launched by the United States in the early 1990s both suffered disastrous results. This is not entirely a matter of natural risks in simple innovation. Regarding the historical process of the introduction of these 2 projects, I suggest that netizens can refer to the last popular science article on SIV that I think is better. This is a series of articles, the end of which, 8, describes the entire detailed historical process of Zumwalt's development, including the alternatives at each stage, and how to determine the final plan. You can also check the development process of the U.S. Navy's SC-21 program from the internet to learn about relevant historical information. Edited at October 24, 2022, 15:06. Of course, the U.S. military will have a naval development plan at any historical stage, which is not surprising. For example, after the design of the R. Lee Burke class was finalized in 1983, the U.S. Navy has already begun to study a new generation of warships. In 1987, 2 major studies, the Surface Ship Combat Characteristics Study, SOCS for short, and the Surface Combat Force Requirements Study, SCFRS, were launched to determine what the next generation of warships needs in terms of design. At that time, the Soviet Union had not yet disintegrated, so in the early stages of research on these projects, competing for sea dominance with the Soviet Union was of course still the top priority. Therefore, the damage management and flexible performance degradation of warships after being attacked have become one of the highest level topics. There are no high requirements for stealth capabilities. General McAfee, who retired in 1987, published the article Ocean Revolution in 1988, proposing a new ship equipped with a large number of vertical launch systems, named Future Strike Crusader. This is the missile arsenal ship that was widely spread later. Even when the SC-21 was proposed later, the missile arsenal ship was still one of the alternative technical solutions that were demonstrated. It comprehensively embodies various functions of air defense, anti-ship, anti-submarine, and land-to-land. However, after the disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1991, sea control was no longer the main consideration, and the direction of the entire research suddenly changed dramatically. In September 1992, the U.S. Navy published a white paper from the sea, which began a major strategic transformation of the Navy after the Cold War, putting coastal operations and ground support in the first place. Then forward from the sea, FFTS, forward presence, forward deployment, forward combat, and a lot of beautiful and arrogant new concepts spewed out. The Navy also proposed to be able to provide direct fire support to friendly forces within 185 kilometers, 100 nautical miles, of the coastline. This is the range standard for the AGS Advanced Naval Gun System in the future. A month later, the U.S. Navy began a series of fundamental studies of a new future surface ship, dubbed SC-21 Surface Combatant of the 21st Century. Under the framework of this plan, the U.S. Navy carried out a series of research on various types of hulls, weapon systems, radar systems, and command and control systems, which laid a solid foundation for the development and construction of DDG-1000 and LCS. In 1994, the Navy Review Committee formulated the mission requirements and concepts of SC-21, and the National Defense Committee DAB also began to let the SC-21 program enter the Milestone Zero phase, and established the Cost and Effectiveness Analysis Team COEA to coordinate the preliminary design plan. COEA prioritizes the land attack mission. Of course, in addition to SC-21, the U.S. Navy had multiple large-scale research programs at the time, including the DD-21 class land attack destroyer. This is the SC-21 combat requirement, the CG-21 class all-purpose cruiser, which can be regarded as is a simplified version of the Arsenal ship, CVX Next Generation Aircraft Carrier. There are also some bizarre episodes in between. Around 1995, U.S. Chief of Naval Operations Jeremy Burda, actually temporarily shelved SC-21/DD-21, and started research on real Arsenal ships. Although the Arsenal ship is also one of the initial evaluation plans of SC-21, the Arsenal ship in the full sense should be said to be a super-enhanced version based on the original guided missile destroyer. If it is fully loaded with land attack cruise missiles, it is the DD-21, but if it is equipped with anti-ship, anti-aircraft and anti-submarine missiles, it can best meet the concept of an all-round cruiser. Strangely, only 1 year later, in May 1996, Admiral Berta, a die-hard supporter of the arsenal, committed suicide because of an inexplicable controversy over the wearing of a V-shaped pendant. The succeeding Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral J.L. Johnson, restarted the SC-21/DD-21 program. The Arsenal ship had been reduced to a sub-program attached to SC-21 in April 1996. The nickname is MFSD, Maritime Fire Support Experimental Ship. In October 1997, the additional budget for the MFSD project was blocked by Congress, and then the once glamorous Arsenal ship was officially revoked by the U.S. Department of Defense in December 1997. If the Arsenal ship project continues, today China's 055 will face the American super all-around warship that doubles its own. It will take at least another 10 years to catch up, and it can only be said to be flat. Looking back today, the goal of CG-21 is more realistic. But the revival of the Chinese nation is always helped by God, so what can be done? Because you have to go to a place less than 200 kilometers away from other people's homes to fight, in order to avoid being hit by the enemy's land-based anti-ship firepower, of course, you must put forward extremely demanding requirements for stealth performance. This is the reason why DDG-1000 and LCS adopt the side design of the hull, which is opposite to the inclination angle of general ships. This design is the best for stealth, but it has an obvious defect that greatly reduces the usable area on the deck. This is why DDG-1000 has a full load displacement of 14,564 tons, is equipped with 20 times quadruple Mk57 advanced vertical launchers, AVLS, and has a total ammunition capacity of 80 pieces. And China's 055 guided missile destroyer has a full load displacement of 12,800 tons, is equipped with 14 times 8 unit general purpose launchers, and has a total ammunition capacity of 112 pieces. On December 26, 2005, when China's first 052C anti-aircraft missile destroyer equipped with phased array radar and vertical launch system, Haikou Ship 171, known as the Chinese Aegis, officially entered service, the United States did not take it too seriously. After all, this 8-seater, 6-unit, 48-silo guided missile destroyer can only launch a single Hai-Hunky 9 long-range air defense missile. Does not have much anti-ship capability. Looking back today, can people laugh knowingly? Since it is possible to launch anti-aircraft missiles, is it difficult to launch anti-ship missiles? Subsequently, China continued to improve its technological level in small steps. On March 21, 2014, the first 052D guided missile destroyer produced by China Jiangnan Shipyard served in the South China Sea Fleet. Anti-ship missiles, cruise missiles, and rocket-assisted torpedoes. This America is a little restless. But at this time, the first ship, the USS Zumwalt, was launched on October 28, 2013 at the Bath Iron and Steel Shipyard in Maryland. On October 15, 2016, the first ship of the Zumwalt class, the USS Zumwalt, was officially commissioned. Then on August 24, 2018, it was reported on the internet that China's first Type 055 destroyer manufactured by Shanghai Jiangnan Shipyard had begun sea trials. On January 12, 2020, Nanchang, the first ship of Type 055 destroyer, officially entered service with the hull number 101. By this time, the United States was already in a state of confusion, knowing that it was completely in the wrong direction. Looking back now, the DDG-1000 was a complete idiot. Because although DDG-1000 is positioned as FFTS Frontier, from sea to land, such a large warship cannot be just a land attack warship. Its 80 silos can support missiles such as Standard Area Air Defense Missiles, Sea Sparrow ESSM Short-Range Air Defense Missiles, Tactical Tomahawk Cruise Missiles, ALAM Advanced Surface-to-Surface Missiles, Vertically Launched Anti-Submarine Rockets, VLA, etc. No anti-ship capability is considered at all. If there is a war between China and the United States, is there any possibility of stealth within 200 kilometers from the coast of China? Is there any chance of survival? No way. This guy can only bully a country like Iraq, and even Iran may be enough. So it was quickly stopped, not because of cost control, but because it realized that it was a fool. It does have the problem of cost out of control during the research and development process, but if you look at all the weapons in the United States from research and development to deployment, which one is not caused out of control? Then why only it was quickly stopped, but the F-35, which was also in the wrong direction, was not stopped, but continued to be mass-produced? Because on the one hand, there are too many countries involved in the F-35, and the entire NATO countries are all involved, and the United States dare not stop it just like that. Second, no matter what, the F-35 did not say that it does not control the issue of air power at all. At least it is not worse than the F-15 and F-16 in terms of air combat performance, right? But some walls could be so wrong. If the strategic direction is wrong, everything is wrong. No matter how superb technology and tactics are, it will not help. There is no shortage of insightful people in the United States. Today we can finally understand why General Berta committed suicide in anger. He shelved the DD-21, obviously because he seriously disagreed with the fact that the main strategy of the US Navy is only fire support to the land, and no longer considers the issue of sea control. It is very likely that Admiral Berta has been vaguely aware of the disastrous situation of the US Navy today to varying degrees, and is unwilling to become a historical sinner of the US Navy. Now that it has been suspended, of course we have to quickly switch to a new warship research and development plan, right? Therefore, in January 2022, the R&D plan PPT of the next generation US warship DDG-X was grandly launched. Take a look at the picture below. If you don't say that it is the DDG-X of the future next generation advanced US warship plan that the US military will introduce in early 2022, who can you think of? That's right, China's 055. Conceptual design drawing of the next generation warship DDG-X, proposed by the United States in January 2022. Real photos of the first 055 ship Nanchang, which has been in service for more than 3 years. 30 years later, when the Nanchang ship is retired from active service and handed over to the China Coast Guard as a fishery law enforcement ship, when China's first Type 058 guided missile destroyer is launched, we may see the news that the first DDG-X ship will enter service. We used to say that China is crossing the river by touching Yingjiang's head, and it balls Yingjiang's head. The first step is what the United States has already achieved. We have implemented a simplified version and an approximate version. The second step was realized by the United States, and we realized the transcendent version. The third step is that the United States is responsible for the PPT, and we are responsible for its implementation. The fourth step is that Hollywood is responsible for shooting, and we are responsible for turning science fiction into reality. Now is the fifth step. In the current development of naval-guided missile destroyers, we have already achieved, and the US military is responsible for doing PPT accordingly. The DDG-X, in the PPT stage of the US military, has a clearer CG picture. Many Chinese military bloggers say that this wave of copy and paste operations is doing a good job. 7. Why is it difficult for the US military to make a military technology shift? This article has revealed so many military secrets in this way, and the US military has also started to make PPTs, so won't people catch up soon? Let me tell you the answer first: never possible. To analyze what is the reason, we first have to go back 40 years ago. On February 17, 1979, the People's Liberation Army began a month-long self-defense counterattack against Vietnam and ended successfully. Since then, the border military contest between the two sides has continued for another 10 years. War is an occasion for heroes. The People's Liberation Army paid the price of life and blood for the Chinese people and made new achievements. However, the military conflict on the Sino-Vietnamese border was not over yet. On June 4, 1985, Deng Xiaoping, then chairman of the Central Military Commission, announced a decision that shocked the world: the reduction of 1 million personnel in the Chinese military, accounting for about a quarter of the total number of Chinese troops at that time. 1. The 11 major military regions were reduced to 7. When this round of disarmament was officially completed in 1987, the staffing of the 3 headquarters agencies was reduced by nearly half. After reduction, the total strength of the People's Liberation Army is about 3.3 million. As early as November 1, 1984, that is, 1 month after the famous National Day 35th Anniversary Military Parade, the Central Military Commission held a symposium, and Deng Xiaoping proposed a large-scale disarmament. Deng Xiaoping said, "Disarmament is a matter of offending people, let me offend and don't hand over the conflict to the new chairman of the Central Military Commission. Don't the People's Liberation Army feel aggrieved by the fact that they have made great achievements in battle but suffered major layoffs? Of course I feel wronged. However, the People's Liberation Army is the People's Army, and this is the meaning of the People's Army. When the people of the motherland needs it, it can go to the battlefield to shed blood, die bravely, and fight the enemy bravely, disarmed and return to the fields to engage in construction. Later, it went through several rounds of disarmament, and adopted a policy of temporary patience by the military to make way for economic development. I used to conduct radar interference tests for microwave communication projects, which required the cooperation of the radar stations of the Army. This coordination should be subject to payment. When we went to negotiate with the radar station on how to pay, the company commander of the radar station told us a surprising situation. They actually had a company account. We were still a public institution at that time, and finally the public institution transferred money to the company. The company commander said that they raised pigs, chickens, and ducks, opened up wasteland to grow vegetables, and took on various engineering projects. Not only do I have meat and vegetables to eat, but I also give them to the brother troops, so that I can sell them in the market to make money. One of their radar stations is equivalent to a small company. Back then, when there was a shortage of military expenditures, many troops carried out mass production campaigns under the conditions of a modern market economy. The company commander said frankly that there is no military expenditure for radar training and duty. We paid for them to finally have the opportunity to carry out normal training, so that the soldiers would not even forget how to turn on the radar. They were very grateful. Of course, under the conditions of a market economy, some problems were unavoidable for the military to do business at that time, and later the military was completely decoupled from doing business. Looking back today, if it were not for the temporary patience of the Army in the 1980s, how would we have had the rapid economic growth at the highest rate in those years? How could we have had sufficient military expenditures to develop various weapons and equipment, and how could the People's Liberation Army today be able to fly soaring to the sky, a powerful military strength that looks down on the world? Putting the interests of the people first in everything is not only in the best interest of the people, but also in the end will be more beneficial to the Army itself. On the other hand, although the United States has the world's largest military budget, it has formed a fixed interest group, and there is not much money that can really be spent on the right way. You want the Army to be patient for a while and spend more money on naval construction. Is it possible? Is it possible for you to let those rich people with the most money on Wall Street pay a little more tax to develop the military? Is it possible for the US military to conduct large-scale layoffs for the benefit of the people of the country and abolish troops stationed around the world to save military expenditures? Pull it down. Moreover, in the past, the dividend of dollar hegemony could support high military spending as a percentage of GDP. However, the status of the US dollar is declining, and the US will no longer have so much military spending in the future. Deindustrialization has led to the decline of American manufacturing, making the United States lose the basis for the smooth development of any armed equipment. For example, after the USS Ford entered service, there were also many problems with electromagnetic ejection. Some people think that the medium voltage AC technology system itself is relatively complicated, while China's medium voltage DC technology system is relatively simple, so it is easy to mature and stabilize. This may be the reason, but the more critical question is, do you think that the reason for the success of China's electromagnetic catapult is only because of the existence of a god-man named academician Ma Weimin? What ordinary people can't see is the support of hundreds of Chinese electrical equipment manufacturers behind him. For any system designed by Ma Weimin's team, some manufacturers can quickly develop stable and qualified components based on their own mature products. But most of every new component in any new system in the United States has to be customized from scratch. How can this be mature and stable? And this will definitely bring about the problem of high prices. Even if the military expenditure and manufacturing problems can be solved, when will the US DDG-X become combat effective? Let's put it this way, even in China, which is now at the peak of its manufacturing industry, it is impossible to develop a brand new warship from scratch and then to form combat effectiveness without 20 to 30 years. To develop any brand new warship, it takes at least 3 to 5 years to study and clarify operational requirements, technical feasibility, and cost-effectiveness analysis, more than 7 years for the United States. After the requirements are determined, The hull structure is obtained through repeated calculations by computational fluid dynamics, and then various dragging experiments have to be done repeatedly to calculate whether the resistance is appropriate using Froude's law. If it is not suitable, it needs to be redesigned and calculated. Static stability, dynamic stability, anti-sinkability, resistance characteristics, heave, pitch angle, heel angle, center of gravity, center of stability. Pre-research of supporting weapons and equipment, experiment. After the weapons and equipment are determined, it may be necessary to build an experimental model on land with the same size as the actual warship for various tests and verifications. All detailed technical requirements for ship type, materials, outfitting, weapons and equipment, tank test data and design requirements are confirmed before the bidding can begin. After winning the bid, the manufacturer needs to carry out detailed design in an all-round way. If necessary, it may have to conduct full experiments in the middle. It will take 3 to 5 years for production before launching. After being launched into the water, various experiments must be carried out for more than 2 years, and the process must be repeated after returning to the factory for outfitting and commissioning. After the first ship is delivered to the troops, various experiments will be carried out for 2 years before it can form combat effectiveness. Then, if it is fast, a few ships will be built every year. If it is slow, it will be built one by one every year, and it will take another 10 years to reach the state of overall combat effectiveness in terms of quantity. The United States proposed the SC-21 in 1992. Even if everything goes well, it will take more than 30 years to form combat effectiveness according to the original plan. This is indeed a little slower, but it is actually considered normal. Ship engineering is really too troublesome, even if China does not shorten the time much compared to Americans. Therefore, in the past 30 years, the United States has been completely useless in terms of naval development. Will history still give America a chance? It does not just depend on whether the United States does the right thing in the future, but also depends on whether China will make particularly serious, directional, strategic, and extremely low-level mistakes. This kind of mistake must be made for 30 years more than the time the United States is likely to come back. It's too late, everything is too late. Then won't the United States also develop new fighter jets and hypersonic missiles soon? Of course it's impossible. Why? If you want to develop these things, the most basic and prerequisite technical foundation is to have a corresponding wind tunnel, which is the core experimental equipment for developing any hypersonic product. The United States has not built any new wind tunnels in more than 30 years. China has been continuously developing and building higher performance wind tunnels for so many years. The latest news is that it has just successfully developed a wind tunnel with 33 times the speed of sound. All science and technology are based on measurement and experimentation. Without a corresponding wind tunnel, without the support of thousands of experiments and measurements in the wind tunnel, even if you have great skills and all the top talents in the world, it is impossible to make a qualified hypersonic product. This is not a problem that money can solve. It's too late, everything is too late. The technology tree of the sea and air military is all wrong. Is it possible to get some back in the army equipment? Pull it down. Since the war to resist US aggression and aid Korea, when did the US military conceive of going to war with the Chinese army? It's too late, everything is too late. It's over, it's over. 8 prospects for China U.S. power comparison in the next 10 years. Up to now, there are incomplete statistics of the main battleships of the Chinese Navy that have been in service or launched. Heavy aircraft carrier, 3 ships. Type 075 light aircraft carrier, Bow Shark, and other UAV aircraft carriers, 4 ships. 055, 8 ships. 052D, 25 ships. 054A, 40 ships. 054B, 1 ship, just launched in 2023. Using all-electric propulsion, the key enhancement is the anti-submarine capability. With the simultaneous construction of 5 new 052 DLS at the Dalian, Liaoning State Shipyard, and the simultaneous construction of 15 more ships at the Jinlan, St. Angel State Shipyard, let alone by 2033, even by 2027, the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Chinese Army, China will form an absolutely overwhelming military advantage over the entire NATO, including the United States, in almost all fields of military technology. The work of China's Public Knowledge and China's War and Neglect Bureau is really too successful, so whether it is foreign or domestic ordinary people, media professionals, politicians, and even think tanks, the vast majority of people have not yet realized this great change that has not happened in a century. How could it come so fast? In terms of Navy, China will have 4 aircraft carriers. More than 16 055 ships equipped with electromagnetic guns, more than 35 052D/052DL ships, 50 054A and 054B ships, more than 16 075 ships and 8 076 ships will be able to carry vertical takeoff and landing stealth carrier-based aircraft J-35, 10 more than 1 UAV aircraft carrier, so that the number of modern aircraft carriers exceeded 38 in one fell swoop. Not only that, China's 055/052D main battleships will all be equipped with anti-ship missiles with a range of over 1,000 kilometers, water-drifting ballistics, and the final stage is more than 10 times the speed of sound. Graham class, the newly built Arleigh Burke IIIs are all obsolete. I personally hope that China will have 20 to 30 giant floating islands of 1 million tons to 100 million tons distributed in key positions in various oceans of the world to protect the entire Earth from harassment by various hooligans. China's Air Force will install more than 20 A-20S and 5 White Emperor aerospace fighters. Since the Turbofan 15 is officially used on the J-20B, the production of the J-20 series will be greatly accelerated. By 2027, China will have more than 500 J-20S and J-35S, more than 2,000 stealthy loyal wingmen, and more than 2,000 J-16, J-10 series, J-11 and other 4th-generation concept fighters. The more than 2,000 F-35S equipped by NATO are okay to bully small countries, but for China's J-20S and other fighters that have reached the 5th-and-a-half generation level, they will be backward products of the generation gap. The main performance indicators of the later carrier-based J-35 must surpass the F-35B and F-35C in order to be able to become an army. The army has hundreds of thousands of unmanned aerial vehicles of various types and millions of loitering bombs. Most of the missiles with hypersonic speed and water-drift ballistics have all been modified. 100 kilowatts such as Silent Hunter, Poly Company foreign trade version, to 300 kilowatts level tactical laser weapons, etc., as well as strategic heavy-duty laser weapons developed on the technical basis of Xinguang 4, the official name announced by China, which has been completed in 2020, a large number of various types of laser weapons such as Death Ray, the name speculated by foreign media, are installed. The peak power of the laser pulse of the previous generation of Xinguang 3 can reach 60 billion kilowatts, and the instantaneous output energy is 180,000 joules. It is estimated that the peak power of the Xinguang 4 laser pulse can reach 1 trillion kilowatts, and the instantaneous output energy is 2 million joules. What is the concept of 2 million joules? It is about the energy required to boil 12 bottles of 500 ml mineral water, which doesn't seem like much. But you must know that it is concentrated in a very small area and released instantly, which is enough to burn through a nuclear submarine. 9. Will there be a war between China and the United States? Many people are discussing whether there will be a war between China and the United States, and some people even seriously say how many years there may be a state of war between China and the United States. But if we understand a little bit of the most basic military common sense, when discussing whether two countries will go to war, we must consider the basic issue of where the battlefield is. After determining where the battlefield is, we can discuss how the battle might be fought. Just ask, if there is a war between China and the United States, are there any possible battlefields? The case that best demonstrates people's lack of basic common sense about the military is a very well-known Chinese media person who just put forward such an extreme point of view about the current lack of military common sense between China and the United States just a few days ago. If China and the United States have a war with equal strategic interests and life and death for both sides, the United States will be able to easily carry out political mobilization to fight China for the survival of the United States, and will be able to mobilize all forces to fight China to the death. If in such a situation, I believe China will have no chance of winning. What is equity of strategic interests? From the current point of view, everyone knows that if there is a war between China and the United States, the only possibility is because of the Taiwan Strait issue. Is the Taiwan Strait an issue of equal strategic interests and a matter of life and death for both sides between China and the United States? What military common sense is used as the basis to make the judgment that China will have no chance of winning? Is it just belief based on personal ignorance of basic military knowledge? China will not go to North America to invade other countries, and in the entire Western Pacific region, the question is not where China and the United States will go to war, the only problem is where the US military is going to be massacred one way by the Chinese military. It is impossible for the entire Western Pacific to have a so-called battlefield between China and the United States. The only thing that can exist is a slaughterhouse for the US military. Don't believe it yourself, ask the US military itself. Is the current military balance between China and the US in this situation? 10. How might the Taiwan issue be resolved militarily? China is the most warlike nation in the world. Mao Zedong's military thought brought this cultural tradition of good warfare to the extreme. The work I have done in the book Beyond War is nothing more than a complete and systematic derivation of Mao Zedong's military thought using mathematical formulas, thus strictly proving that this kind of military thought is the basis of all war issues in the most scientific way. Optimal solution of how will the People's Liberation Army fight and attack cities? Just look at how to fight Lang Son 40 years ago, you can know one or two. Quiet as a virgin, hair like a rabbit. It is as fast as the wind, as slow as the forest, as aggressive as fire, as immovable as a mountain. Hidden under the 9 grounds, moving above the 9 heavens. What does it mean to fight a battle of annihilation? The first battle must be won, and it is better to cut off 1 finger than to hurt 10 fingers, to wipe out a large number of the enemy's vital forces. Don't think that China is easy to bully just from its current state of quiet as a virgin, as quiet as a forest, hidden under 9 places and immovable as a mountain. Once China moves, it will definitely be earth-shattering. At most, the United States claims to return Iraq back to the Stone Age. It's too hopeless. If the Chinese army goes to war, it will bring the US military bases in the first island chain back to the state before the Cambrian explosion. In addition to viruses, bacteria, and archaea, animals in the eukaryotic domain, the vast majority of kingdoms and plant kingdoms will go extinct according to the Gate. When fighting wars, the Chinese army will not fight in the way of going to and from get off work like Westerners do. Once the war starts, within 10 minutes, the attacked US military base will be hit at the level of extermination. If 20 bombs are required to paralyze a military base according to the US military's algorithm, the Chinese army will definitely not use 20, but use 1,000, 3,000, or 10,000 bombs to shoot them out within 10 minutes, without letting you hear the bomb's explosion. Only by destroying the enemy's vital forces to the greatest extent at the beginning of the war can the enemy's will to fight be defeated at the fastest speed, thus ending the war as quickly as possible. Only by annihilating the enemy's active forces to the greatest extent at the beginning of the war can not only the own casualties in the war, but also the enemy's casualties be reduced to a minimum. Once the enemy surrenders, treat the captives with the utmost preference. The food, drink, and shelter are even better than our own soldiers. However, Westerners cannot rationally vent their anger at once in a real war, so they will vent their anger on the captives incompetently and lawlessly after capturing the enemy. I once said that if Taiwan Island is attacked, at least 1.8 million troops will fight there within a day. Some people say that how many troops does the Chinese army have in each theater? How could there be 1.8 million troops? This will be a war that concerns the future and destiny of the Chinese nation for hundreds of years in the future. If the maximum war mobilization is not carried out, will war be started at will like Russia? The enemy must be lenient. How could it be possible to lightly start a war without recruiting more than 20 million reserve troops and comprehensive war mobilization, and being ready to win 3 or even 4 large-scale enemy attacks at the same time? The greater the mobilization, the sooner the war ends, the smaller the final economic burden, the fewer men are really needed, and the fewer people die. Even if the extra people do nothing, standing there with a gun can play a huge role. In a fight between 2 parties, the other party has 10 people. If you only send out 9 people, the other party may really fight you. But if you go to 180 people, do you still need to fight? The other party immediately confessed. When the time comes when 5 million troops will be stationed in Liaoning and the Shandong Peninsula, will Japan and South Korea have the guts to say that the Taiwan Strait has anything to do with them? In the next 100 years, the People's Liberation Army may have only 1 battle to fight, so why don't they use all their strength? Weapon technology changes all the time, but the basic mathematical laws of war never change. Soldiers are more expensive than victory, not long. The soldiers have heard of the clumsy speed, and it has not been a long time since they have seen the coincidence. It is not possible for a husband to have a long army and benefit the country. Therefore, those who do not fully understand the harm of using troops cannot fully understand the benefits of using troops. Regarding the upcoming war across the Taiwan Strait, once the war really starts, if the battle cannot be finished in hours, it may be calculated in years. Let's take a look at today's Russia-Ukraine war. If it drags on like that, what would be the disastrous consequences for us? If you want to move, you must move above the 9 heavens. If there is any movement, it is necessary to fight a war to determine the world for the next 100 years, and to fight for 100 years of peace through the First World War, so that Americans must be respectful whenever they come to China in the next 100 years. Completely change the basic positioning of the relationship between China and the United States, from now on.